That's Jimmy Stein. I'm Clint Lamb, and this is the Cover Crimson YouTube channel. Jimmy, good conversation on Monday about Alabama's game against LSU. Now it's time to shift focus to Oklahoma, who is playing good football right now. It's going to be a really tough test. Their defense going against Alabama's offense. John Mateer is healthier now, so quarterback as far as mobility, which granted the injury was to his hand, so his mobility was never affected. It was actually his arm and his ability to throw the football. But he's the fact that he is healthy, he's a dynamic player, someone that Alabama's going to have to keep an eye on, especially after I guess some of the struggles with stopping the run, the quarterback run last year against Oklahoma. This is a much more effective runner and can do a lot as far as volume and handling all that stuff. But we'll be getting into all that. First of all, based off of just your initial run through of Oklahoma, what are some of the things that stand out about this team?
Good team. Good team. Reminds me a lot of Alabama in many ways. Very good defensively, really good against the run. Venables is one of the best, and he's got dudes. This is the best defense in the SEC. I really believe that. But they're really good, principally against the run. I think they can be had in the air if the quarterback has time to get the ball off. That they have given up numbers through the air at times, like to Tennessee. I find it interesting that there's been two common opponents here, South Carolina and Tennessee. They beat South Carolina more easily than Alabama did. Alabama beat Tennessee more easily than Oklahoma did. Now they played both of those teams on the road. Alabama played both of them at home. So there, you have to account for that. Other side of the ball, Mateer is scary. I felt in September that he may have led the Heisman race. Notice that the September Heisman winner rarely ever hangs on. And of course, he had the thumb injury, which really changed things. They're still quite dangerous on offense because they have found a run game recently. I think Xavier Robinson has rushed for over 100 yards, I think 3 weeks in a row. He's sort of a dude X there at running back. A couple of good receivers. Offensive line is very young, but pretty good. They're not terrible considering their youth. This is a dangerous football team that is playing for their playoff lives. We're going to get Oklahoma at max effort, back against the wall, trying to cobble together the best game they've played in 2025. They had success against Alabama a year ago. That's a confidence boost to them. This is a scary game, a dangerous game. And if there's one element to it that scares me the most, it's John Mateer's legs. Alabama has struggled with athletic quarterbacks in the past, and Mateer's legs. I can see Oklahoma going a little ham with the run game this weekend, and I think it's going to be on Alabama to end Xavier Robinson's streak of 100-yard games and also contain Mateer.
Yeah, I think you raised great points. I'm concerned about Mateer's legs as well. The biggest concern for me is Oklahoma's defense, obviously, but on the offensive side is going to be John Mateer. There's no doubt about it. Just because, I mean, he's 2 weeks further removed from any sort of problems with the hand. And so as he gets more and more healthy, he becomes that player again. Now, granted, when you watch him on tape, really good awareness in the pocket, can definitely be a guy that you get a +1 advantage in the run game. You can give him volume, him going off script and improvising or design quarterback runs. He's effective on the ground in a variety of ways. Great arm, but really struggles with a touch and anticipation throwing the football down the field. So that is interesting to me. I think he tests windows unnecessarily sometimes, like too tight of windows. And I think that at times he holds onto the ball a little bit too long, and he'll take those unnecessary sacks. So I think he's gettable in some ways, and I think he presents challenges in some ways. In this type of game, it's all about minimizing strengths and maximizing weaknesses to your advantage. And I think Alabama has the ability to do that. But more so, before we get into talking about Mateer and that Oklahoma offense, I want to go ahead and talk about the defense. This is probably going to be the less fun side of this conversation for Alabama, even though it's both, there's challenges for both teams on both sides. So it's not going to be like, oh, Alabama's screwed here or Oklahoma is screwed here in any sort of way. But I think right now, when you look at what Oklahoma is doing defensively, they've been absolutely incredible. And I got some of the stats here to kind of pull up. Number one, they're number 3 nationally in sacks, averaging 3.67 per game. They're number 4 in total sacks with 33, only 2 behind the leader. But one of the things, like Alabama, they have 3 players with 2 sacks or more this season. Oklahoma has 7 players with 2 sacks or more. So they got a bunch of different dudes. When you look at that defensive front on the interior, they got 4 guys that can rotate and get after you. They got 3 or 4 edge guys that can help and get after you. Second level, they've been really good, but they're number 1 in tackles for loss with 97. That is 12 more than the next highest, which is Indiana with 85. That's 22 more than the third highest, which is East Carolina with 75. 22 tackles for loss, more than the number 3 ranked team in tackles for loss. This is where we start talking about scary season. That's why this is scary. Now, granted, I don't want to panic Alabama fans and, oh, Alabama's screwed. I'm saying this defense generates a lot of negative plays, both tackles for loss and sacks. Not great as far as interceptions, not great as far as turnover. In fact, in turnover margin, they haven't been very good. So I think that if Alabama can limit the turnovers and then generate some turnovers on the other side, which we'll be talking about later, that can be a massive advantage, especially in Bryant-Denny Stadium for Alabama. But this Oklahoma defense, it's deep, it's talented. I mean, do you know who Kendall Daniels is?
Plays for Oklahoma?
Yeah, the defender. Yeah, sure. He is he's so fascinating to me because against Tennessee, the first play of the game, I pull it up, and I had seen him play some, but I kind of forgot about him a little bit. He's an Oklahoma State transfer, listed at 6'5", 242 pounds. In the first snap, they're going 3 high safety look against Tennessee with him playing that middle safety. And then I remember this guy actually was a safety linebacker hybrid at Oklahoma State, was a tackling machine, and was actually a very impactful player for them. So I go and I watch. I mean, this guy, he plays safety. He plays a strong side linebacker in some 4-3 looks. He'll play that nickel, or that what you would call the star position, which they call it the cheetah position. But he'll play nickel. I mean, this guy does it all. He'll line up on the line of scrimmage as an edge rusher. And when you see 6'5", 242 pounds, you think, oh, this guy's like a 3-4 outside linebacker type, a wolf type of player. No, this is a nickel corner. This is a safety. This is an off-ball linebacker. This is an edge rusher. This is an everything unicorn type of player that has made plays.
Sounds like a bigger Harold Perkins. Like Harold Perkins, but bigger.
And to me, not more athletic. But like I think he's much better, much more comfortable playing off the ball because he comes from like a safety background. He's not like an edge pass rusher that has slowly worked his way back. He's worked his way forward, if anything. And, that makes him a very interesting player that I will be curious to see how Alabama not attacks him, because it's not like you want to attack him like he's vulnerable. But, I mean, he does a lot of different things. But I think also if you can get him in some matchups potentially in the slot against a Latsier Brooks or one of those more crafty inside players, maybe they can create some separation and cause him some problems, because they will put him on a slot receiver and let him play man-to-man coverage against him. So this is just a very interesting Brent Venables defense that not only is extremely coached well, it also is very talented and very deep.
A couple things now. I'll play good cop. A couple things to cheer people up after that dose of holy crap. Couple things. Here's a good one. I think their most disruptive player up front consistently is R. Mason Thomas. He's extremely difficult to block. He's highly experienced. He's a senior. He might not play. The Oklahoma Locked On guys last night did a crossover episode with him. They didn't think he was going to play Saturday. Now
that's interesting.
So that's not up to date information. That may change as people are listening to this show. But as of this recording, that's what I'm told. That they're not, they don't get to do the availability report, but they were clearly listing him as doubtful. The Oklahoma Locked On guys. But that's interesting, and that will be helpful. How about this? They have a freshman cornerback. Now, Alabama's got a freshman cornerback, and I wouldn't suggest to anybody to try to pick on Dijon Lee for 60 minutes. You're going to pay if you try to pick on Dijon Lee for 60 minutes. Alabama, we'd almost invite that. And I'm not comparing this kid to Dijon Lee. I'm just saying that it's interesting that they have a freshman cornerback. I mean, those usually invite some sort of attack mode, and Alabama's got Ryan Williams, Jeremy Bernard, Isaiah Horton, all these outside threats that might be very difficult for a freshman to handle. I also think it's a positive that DeBoer and Sheridan, not Grubb, but DeBoer and Sheridan faced Venables a year ago. They've seen this. They've now seen it. They've dealt with the sign stealing sort of thing. I think it behooves you to be paranoid about that. I think you literally do have to change everything. You have to go into it assuming they have the signals. And I think they're better prepared for that than a year ago. I think that's helpful. Also, playing at home and not having the crowd noise be such a problem as it is, when you play in Norman. So now that said, boy, this Oklahoma defense it's the best defense in the SEC. I know I'm an SEC homer, but I can back all that up with facts. When I say you're the best defense in the SEC, to me, that's akin to saying you're the best defense in college football. Because generally, if you're the best in the SEC, you're the state of the art. You're as good as it gets. And I think Oklahoma is exactly that. And I think one other thing that's a bit of a positive, what Oklahoma does best is stop the run. And against Alabama, that's almost irrelevant. I mean, it's kind of like, so what? Like, are you saying that you believe you're going to limit us to 50 yards on the ground?
Do you think you're going to stop our run better than we can stop our run?
Exactly. You can't treat our pledges like that. Only we can treat our pledges like that. So I'm not sure how relevant it is that Oklahoma is fantastic at stopping the run. I hope they take a lot of pride in holding Alabama to 50 yards or less. I don't think that's going to affect Alabama's ability to win the game. I think what is going to affect Alabama's ability to win the game is if they can stop the run and get pressure on Ty, immense pressure, more pressure than Ty has seen. Now that is a big freaking problem for Alabama there, because if Oklahoma takes the run away, and they're very likely to, of course they are, it's on Ty and the receivers. Oklahoma can be had in the back end, freshman corner, other things. I think Joey Aguilar threw for a ton of yards. I think they had at least one other game where the quarterback got over 300 yards passing. They can be had in the air, but not if Ty Simpson's running for his life. This is the test for the Alabama offensive line. We'll find out about them. We don't need a stellar performance there, but just give Ty some time and not just put too much stress on him.
Yeah, I agree with you. It would be absolutely huge if R. Mason Thomas is not available. Because, despite the fact that he's like 6'2", I don't even know if he's that tall. I think probably closer to 6'1", 249 pounds. He's physical for a guy his size. He's twitched up. He's explosive. You love the motor in which he plays, can convert speed to power, can do all the things that a high quality pass rusher can do. And I think while it might be more of a situational type of player on the NFL level, I think he's going to make an impact on the next level as a pass rusher.
He reminds me of a quick comp there. Do you remember, it was a while back, you remember Auburn's Carl Lawson?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, there's some Carl Lawson there, an undersized edge, but is too good of a football player not to have a role.
But yeah, I mean, and Carl Lawson, the former 5-star recruit, 6'2", about 255, 260-ish. I think he was probably 250, 255. So, yeah, similar size to R. Mason Thomas. But there's just, that's an impactful player. And if he's not available, then that certainly helps. Now, granted, Oklahoma, they have 4 players who already have 20 or more pressures this season. They have 199, according to Pro Football Focus, on the season. That's an average of 22 per game. Alabama's sitting at 140. So that's about 59 less. Now, granted, Alabama's pass rush has really started to come on strong really since SEC play. It was almost in a lot of ways non-existent. There just wasn't a whole lot of opportunities through the first three contests. Now it's starting to pick up a little bit, but still, Oklahoma can't apply pressure. Taylor Wynn, who has been a guy who's been kind of a part-time starter for them as an edge. Marvin Jones Jr., I think he originally was at Georgia, went to Florida State. Now he's at Oklahoma. If I'm not mistaken, it's the same guy. He's okay, but Taylor Wynn was the one that when R. Mason Thomas went out against Tennessee, he ended up being the main guy that they relied on. And from an interior standpoint, still continued to generate some pressure. And also Wynn had 7 pressures himself. So he really stepped it up and was a very dominant player. He actually ties R. Mason Thomas for a team leading 25 pressures on the season, despite the fact that he's played roughly about 40 or 50 less snaps. So he's still a good player, but R. Mason Thomas is the most dynamic, most explosive pass rusher that they have. And if he's not available, I wouldn't say it's to this same extent, but it's kind of like if South Carolina wouldn't have had Dylan Stewart, but they still would have had Brian Thomas. They still would have had a really good pass rusher. But I think when all the attention goes to that player, I think they're a little less impactful because they more so thrive on somebody else. It's more of the Ryan Anderson type, where it's Ryan Anderson, Tim Williams. Ryan was a great complimentary number 2 pass rusher, where he wouldn't, if you're giving him all the attention and stuff on those obvious passing situations, he wouldn't be as impactful. But the fact that he had Tim Williams, who was getting all this attention, okay, you're not giving him as much attention as he deserves. He's getting more one-on-one matchups, and that really helps. So, yeah, I definitely think that R. Mason Thomas not being out there will certainly make a difference if he's unable to go on Saturday.
Yeah, and let me one other player we haven't mentioned on Oklahoma that impresses the heck out of me every time I watch him is the interior tackle David Stone. That dude, he's a handful. Now Alabama, Parker Brailsford, I think will be on Stone quite a bit, but you will need some help. Even Brailsford, as good as he is, Stone's a really big kid. IMG Academy. I think he's originally from Oklahoma, so he was always going to go back there and play for his home state, Sooners. Great player. 1 year from now, he will be being discussed, in my opinion, as a top 10 pick in the draft. I mean, this is a top 10 tackle. Again, a true sophomore. He's going to be a handful. This Oklahoma defense is good. Now, Alabama's played a lot of good defenses. This is life in the SEC. You see a lot of good. I think Alabama played a really good defense last week in LSU, who showed up. We knew they would show up, for this game. Oklahoma's playing with their backs to the wall. I mean, they really need this. I think it's a huge factor in the game. I think this is an overstatement that Alabama would like to win this game. Oklahoma needs to win this game. I don't like that. I'm going to hear that some, but I don't like it because I think Alabama needs to win the game because for any number of reasons. Number one, you're sort of playing for a spot in Atlanta. That's not 100% mathematically true, but in all likelihood, that's true. I mean, I think the scenarios in which Alabama can win this weekend and still not make it to Atlanta are very thin. So I think Alabama does need to win the game. You obviously need to win to maintain where you're at in the rankings. You also need to win because it's a bit of a revenge game. I mean, the guys on the team from last year, I mean, if that didn't leave a bad taste in your mouth, I don't know what will.
They kept you out last year. Now it's your turn to return the favor.
That's exactly right. The shoe would be on the other foot. Oklahoma, no doubt, finished off Alabama last year, knocked Alabama out, and you could be doing the same to Oklahoma. So I don't like the they need to win. Alabama would like to win, but I also get it when people say it because this loss wouldn't eliminate Alabama from the playoff, but it would put Alabama in a precarious spot going to Jordan Hare and facing Auburn and their new offense.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they need it, because if you win this game, your spot in the playoffs, in my opinion, is clinched. It's clinched pretty much. I mean, granted, because even if they lose to Auburn, make it to the SEC championship and lose the SEC championship, I still think a 10-3 Alabama's getting in. So I don't think they'll be punished for losing that third game in the SEC championship. So, if you win this game, you take all the pressure off of yourself going into Jordan Hare. You don't want to leave it up to, hey, this is a must-win game, or we don't go to the college football playoff if we lose to Auburn, going to their house against a defense that would, or really a team that would just love to play spoiler. It would make their
it would set their hair on fire. It would
100%.
set their hair on fire if they knew they would keep Alabama out of the playoff with a win, and we'd be facing some sort of superhuman effort. But hey, that's generally what you get from Auburn when you play over there. But I do think this is a big and hey, DeBoer hasn't lost at home. It's homecoming. The attention of the world's on this game. It's one of the 2 or 3 biggest games of the weekend. Ties in the Heisman race. There's everything to play for here. Plus, this Alabama team hasn't shown to me anything other than a major desire to be a championship football team after week 1. But I do think that it's fair to say the offense has taken a step or 2 backward last couple weeks, and now the best defense in the league is showing up. So there's going to have to be a bit of a reinvigorated Alabama offense. One thing I would like to see in attacking Oklahoma this weekend, and I don't want to go overboard with this because the last thing we need to do is see Ty Simpson injured this late in the season. We don't need that. But I do think Ty's legs aren't an answer to generating a run game for Alabama, but occasionally it would be a nice changeup. We saw it just a little bit a week ago. I'd like to see it more this week. Maybe a designed quarterback run or 2, but how about a Ty that you coach up to be a little more aggressive with his legs this week? Like this week, let's be a little more aggressive. Go through a couple reads, it's not there, and you see a lane go. I think they had sort of coached him not to do that earlier in the year, just throw the ball away, just trying to protect Ty. That's a major thing with him. They didn't run Penix a whole lot when he was at Washington, and the dude ran a 4.5 at the combines in Indianapolis. I didn't know he could run. I thought he was Tom Brady watching him play in the Washington offense. Then he goes to Indy and runs a 4.5. They don't like running the quarterback. This might be more of a have to run the quarterback. That's one weapon that's in this offense that we really haven't seen much of. But Ty's very good with his legs. I don't think he's too different than Mateer. It's just that Oklahoma will use Mateer more in that way than Alabama will. Mateer ran for 80 yards in a game recently. Ty could do that. He could do that. So I would like to see some of it, but you have to be judicious and you have to trust Ty with, Ty, we want you to be more aggressive with your legs, but do not take a big hit.
Yeah. I wouldn't hate 3 or 4, maybe even 5 design quarterback runs, because it's almost like when things break down around Ty and it's going off script. Granted, I think he is pretty good about it. He'll pick once, about once a game, maybe twice a game. And I guess there's some games where he doesn't, but where the opportunity, the lane will present itself and he will go off script and just take off and run. So I think leaving that in there is fun, but I think probably one of his biggest strengths is just working through his progressions. And this idea of 1, 2, 3 run, it's like you want those guys, it's like 1 run, 1, 2 run. Like you don't want them sitting back there for forever because, and granted, there are some situations or scenarios where you can make that work. But I just think that I more so like the 1, 2, 3 throw to 3. I think that's more explosive and that's more of Ty's game. But I agree with you that I think at the end of this game, having him 4, 5, 6 total runs, whether that be designed or going off script, I would be completely fine with that. Will they do it? I don't know, because they talked up his legs a lot in the offseason. And I think that the reason that they did was they weren't 100% sure at that point that he was like going to remain the starting quarterback. And I'm just speaking candidly, because even against Florida State, based off his performance, they started giving some other guys some reps. So that was at least them saying, okay, maybe if Ty doesn't start showing some improvement where he needs to, we might have to go to somebody else. But once Ty became this guy and he is playing this caliber of football, now he's like probably the single most important player on your roster. You can't afford to lose him, just because not only what he provides, but also this has not been the type of season where you've blown out teams and gotten those backups a lot of reps. So they were able to early in the season, and that was great. They all 3 played great against Louisiana Monroe, but you just haven't seen those types of opportunities. So just Austin Mack, no experience at this point. Game 10, Keelan Russell, same situation. So you can't afford to lose Ty Simpson. As that's continued to be a thing, I think they've gotten a lot more Michael Penix-esque in trying to protect him as much as possible. So that's just something to keep an eye on because I really don't know how that ends up going. One thing that I did want to talk about is AK Deer. And I'll go ahead and pull it up because I thought this was interesting. He sent out a tweet yesterday, and you're trying to play Nancy Drew with it. And I really don't know.
Can we go with Hardy? Can we go Hardy Boys? Must we be Nancy Drew?
I don't know who the better crime solvers were. I just want to who had the better success rate. I have no idea, but yes, we could definitely go with the Hardy Boys. So he sends out a tweet that just says update ... and it's a picture of him about to catch a pass. Jimmy, I have no idea what that means, but obviously the obvious speculation would become that he might see more playing time this weekend. Is that how you read it? Or was this just, hey, update, I'm playing football for Alabama? I don't know what else he would mean.
Well, every time this sort of comes up like a tweet that needs to be deciphered, I think of I can't remember when it was. It wasn't terribly long ago. Definitely during the age of Twitter, when this happened and there was a tweet. I don't even remember what it was, but it was so noisy. It led to we had to call Alabama and say, we don't want to go too far with it. What does this mean? I mean, just, what does this mean? And then they got back to us like it was about a girl. It wasn't even about football. It was about a girl. And now this is not about a girl. I'm saying, but I just always tell that story because of the whole Alabama fan base was on edge over this tweet. And the tweet was actually about he had just broken up with his girlfriend and was sort of upset about it. And so, so I've been hesitant to decipher tweets since then.
Understandably so.
But I'd have to say if I had to decipher this, I think that's AK Deer saying, "Hey, I'm still here. I'm still here, and you might see me soon." I don't think this is him telegraphing, "Hey, we've put in a play," and because it looks like to me like here he's running a pass route. I don't know that he's like, "Hey, we're putting this in this weekend. I'm going to be running a pass route." I don't think it's that specific, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Deer. I mean, why not? Why not? Jam Miller's averaging 3.6 yards a carry. Daniel Hill, I think, is at 3.6. Kevin Riley's at 3.9. You know who else is at 3.9? Caden Proctor. Yeah. When Caden Proctor is as effective as the three backs that you're playing, it might be time to look for someone else. And I think we all know how good AK Deer is with the ball in his hands. I don't think that's ever been in doubt at all. Certainly not by me, and certainly not in the limited look we've got at him in the games. The question has been, can he protect Ty? I don't know that this is the game to find out if he can or he can't. Because, you've gone over the numbers about how disruptive they are in the opponent's backfield. AK, if he's showing at practice they can trust him to do that, heck yeah, put him out there. But I would be hesitant based on opponent to trust that AK's not going to get Ty murdered. But if he can protect Ty, he's the most talented kid with the ball in his hands. I get frustrated when I read people talk about next year and go, "Oh, thank God when Crowell gets here, Alabama will have a big time back." I'm like, don't forget about AK Deer. AK Deer has big time next level tools. And I'm excited about AK Deer's career. And if we see him this weekend, I'm fine with it, so long as he doesn't get Ty killed.
Yeah, the timing of the tweet, right? Because this gets posted when Alabama's really struggling to run the football. Everybody's looking for answers. Is it the offensive line? Is it the tight ends? Is it the play calling? Is it the running backs? Like, whose fault is it? And then you get this, and it's like, whoa, a lot of fans have been saying this guy, for one reason or another, they believe he could potentially be the savior, a savior, whatever you want to call it. And it's like, I've been reluctant to say that because I do think a lot of it is the offensive line, which is another topic that I want to get into. But there's no doubt from a running standpoint, I will say I am so excited about a future backfield with him Daniel Hill and Xavier Crowell. I think that could be a really special trio. So I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, though, and think all of a
Yeah.
sudden this is a true freshman who's still going through some growing pains. But we have seen some other freshmen for other teams get their, Oklahoma, for example. Jay Knott was supposed to be that
Yeah.
guy for them, and he just wasn't really effective. So what do? They go to the true freshman Troy Blaylock, and he's played pretty good. He's been better in my opinion, more effective in my opinion. But I don't want to get too carried away. But one of the things that I did want to talk about, because Brooks Austin, he posted something yesterday that I 1,000% agree with. I brought up something similar on Sunday, and that was, and granted, we're not the first people to bring this up, by the way, but we've been talking about it for a while. I mean, it didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out when they got Cam Dewberry. I thought that was interesting because it was like, okay, post Tyler Booker, because Tyler Booker was a Caden Proctor type, former 5-star, very highly rated, highly recruited, great leader for your locker room, definitely a talented kid. But from a schematic fit, Tyler Booker really wasn't it for Alabama. He was good enough to compensate. He had good enough athleticism for a guy with his play style and size to, kind of go out there and get the job done, but he did not fit schematically. So then he ends up leaving, and it's like, well, that's not great. You're losing one of your best offensive linemen from last year, and that's always concerning. But from a schematic standpoint, you can actually get a guy who better fits that can do more of what you want to do on that front. Well, then they go out and they get Cam Dewberry, and it's like, hold up. I mean, to an extent, you just got a lesser version of Tyler Booker. Not trying to take a shot at Cam Dewberry. I'm saying this is the number 12 pick in the NFL draft. So this isn't a Cam Dewberry thing. I think he's still a good player. I just don't think he's once again the best fit, and he doesn't bring the compensation that Tyler Booker did from just being an immensely talented kid. So I thought it was interesting at the time, but it's also, one of the things that I agree with Brooks about completely is, and I made the same comparison, Jalen Milroe was not a fit for this offense, but they made it work. They figured out a way to make it work with him. It was the same, in my opinion, that we don't talk about with wide receivers. Because what did they do? Kendrick Law in a Jalen Milroe offense, his ability to go out there and block guys on the perimeter, that was pretty beneficial. But you already had what you would call your gadget player that you do a lot of different things with in Jeremy Bernard, and Kendrick Law was not a pure receiver. He wasn't that type of player. Neither was Kobe Prentice. They didn't fit the system, especially based off of what else they had. They had too many of the same types of guys. They didn't have the size and the length that they wanted. So what do? They go out there, they get Isaiah Horton. They go get Derek Meadows. Now you got C.D. Morgan committed. All those guys bring the size element that you look for. Tight end, another situation where it's like you really want those pass catchers, but also who are going to be adequate, balanced blockers. Last year's guys, great for that offense. We've talked about how they would have helped this year's offense, but they were more pure blocking types of tight ends. This year, they're having to go with more of the pass catch heavy out of necessity, or trying to get the true freshman, Caleb Edwards, further along in his development. But it's like, once again, doesn't really quite fit yet. But a guy like Matt Suter, he's got a lot of balanced ability. Think he's going to end up being a hell of a player for Alabama in due time. But, it's the same situation with the offensive line. It doesn't exactly fit. They can't do what they want to do or what they're comfortable doing with their offensive line. So they're trying to play to their offensive line strengths, but through that, they're A, making themselves uncomfortable, but B, it's like, okay, but by playing to your guard strengths or your left tackle strengths, or I guess in some ways with Wilkenform being the right tackle, to his strengths as well, because he's got some limitations and issues athletically. You're also putting Parker Brailsford in a situation where he's still going to be able to get the job done, but it's not running all the things that you could run with your offensive line to put him in a position to be thriving and successful. So that is, I think, a big issue with what Alabama has struggled with offensively up to this point in the season.
Yeah, that's interesting. The Dewberry signing was the same way to me. I mean, to even more simplify to me, they inherited all these Saban offensive linemen, and they want to be more athletic because Saban wanted, in essence, run blockers, and DeBoer wants pass blockers, and that's oversimplifying. I don't mean it to be that simple, but I do think that it is different body types, and they do want a better athlete. Whereas Saban sort of like these jumbo guys. When they signed Dewberry out of the portal, I'm like, gosh, that felt like something Saban would do. He feels like a Saban type guy to me, a jumbo sized guard that moves people. Surprised they thought they needed that. But that said, Dewberry's basically a full-time starter and has played a ton and has lived up to, I guess, what they wanted in him because he's played a lot. It's not like they got him and went, boy, why did we take him? And then they stuck Will Sanders out there. I mean, Dewberry plays most of the snaps at left guard. So I guess they are, quote, making do to an extent up front. But I don't think Alabama's offensive line has been terrible. I know a lot of Alabama fans think so. I don't look at it that way. I think it's not ideal. It's not as good as you want it to be. I don't think it's as good as it will be in the next cycle or two, in the next season or two. I think it's going to be a position that improves as DeBoer and Courtney Morgan and Ryan Grubb get more of the guys that they actually handpick in there. I think it will improve, but it's not terrible. This is going to be their biggest test, though. There's no question. This is the biggest test. Brailsford, Proctor, Jaden Roberts now, an untalked about story to me has been Alabama has played two guys at center and left tackle, and they've rotated at the other three positions. Now they're not rotating at right guard. 2 weeks in a row, Jaden Roberts played every snap at right guard. That tells me, okay, now right guard is locked in, just like center and left tackle. That's a big story to me. Now you're only rotating at two spots. And at right tackle, I would say that rotation's just going to sort of stick, which is Wilkin roughly 2/3 of the time and Michael Carroll 1/3 of the time. I think that gives Carroll enough reps to stay engaged and improve while keeping the right tackle you trust the most in the game most of the time. Left guard is the one that's up in the air. Now, last week on the show the other day, I was like, boy, I was kind of blown away by how they played three guys and Dewberry played the least. I was unaware of Cam Dewberry getting dinged up. So now that he's healthy, I'm really curious to see what left guard looks like this week and how much Will Sanders and Geno Vandermark will play, presumably behind Cam Dewberry. But left guard is I think the other three guys are locked in. I think the rotation at right tackle is just sort of set now. Left guard being the real question mark going forward. And I think it has a lot to do with what you're just talking about, how Dewberry was the guy out there that they found, but might not be ideally the best fit for what they want to do up front.
That's exactly right. And, one of the things that I also want to point out, you needed a specific type of not just the body, because if you just needed the body, you would have probably done more to keep Caleb Odom. But it's more of the skill set, like an Isaiah Horton. He's more Rome Odunze than a Caleb Odom, who is kind of a wide receiver, tight end hybrid, kind of limited from a route running perspective. Obviously, the in breaking routes and all of that stuff. Like Isaiah Horton is a really good route runner for a guy who's 6'4". Rome Odunze was a good route runner for a guy with his size and length, being 6'3". C.D. Morgan, same situation. Definitely a physical presence out there, but he's got more wide receiver nuance to him. Derek Meadows, who's, by the way, a guy who started the last game, which I thought was pretty crazy seeing him out there, but it was also encouraging to see. But I think his blocking ability on the perimeter, like they're looking for a little bit more of that. But I guess my point with the transfer portal stuff is you can't just go out there and just get offensive line. In my opinion, it is the most difficult thing from a transfer portal perspective to get impactful players. They got to gel with not only your scheme, but they have to have the experience to be able to hold up. They have to be able to mesh with the other players. Like an offensive line has to come together and gel. Yes, you have to build chemistry at receiver. You have to do, but that's a little bit different. Offensive line, it's like, I just don't think anybody that was a fit schematically that was going to make an impact, they were going to be out of Alabama's price range. They were going to be heavily coveted by everybody, and they were so limited. You look at Isaiah Horton, who has been an impactful player for Alabama. Yes, in a lot of ways, he's been wide receiver 4, but everybody loves him. Everybody knows the type of impact he's made this season. You had Eric Singleton, you had Zachariah Branch, you had Kevin Concepcion, you had Deuce Robinson, Nick Anderson, Barian Brown, Dane Key, Noah Thomas, Kevin Coleman, CJ Daniels, Micah Hudson, Eric Rivers, Mario Craver. There were so many guys ahead of him. I think he was like wide receiver 18 or 19 in the transfer portal rankings, but he was still an impactful player because you're going to play a lot of guys. but it's just, you talk about needing a running back. You can go get that player, a quarterback in a lot of instances. I mean, as long as you're not doing it late in the process, you can go get a guy. Offensive line to me is the most difficult position to get out of the transfer portal. I think that they needed somebody that they could expect to come in and compete for a job and had some experience, some SEC experience. That was an added bonus. The one thing is you couldn't get the experience, the talent to compete, and the schematic fit. Like if you wanted to go purely with schematic fit, it's like, okay, it's this smaller school guy, but is he going to be able to make the jump to the SEC? Like there's this dilemma that you're dealing with. And I think they gave up something as far as schematic fit in order to get a guy who had the SEC experience that could come in, and while he wouldn't be able to do everything that you wanted him to do, he could do enough to get the job done. That's what I think they were dealing with. For the future, I think they got a bunch of guys who are either on the roster who are a schematic fit or will be in the future, like with guys like Chris Booker, who I think is just an ultra athletic guy, very Will Sanders-esque. So I'm looking forward to seeing him and a bunch of other guys, but that is something that Alabama, it's offensively, they're struggling on that front to really see the offense come together. And my point in bringing all this up is to say, I think it's more so that, yes, running backs have been an issue. I've said multiple times, I feel like that Jam Miller at times, it feels like he's trying to be patient and let his block set up in front of him when really he needs to be more aggressive pressing the line of scrimmage. You're not seeing that enough from him. But at the same time, I think the biggest issue is this, not hodgepodge, but like these different body types that you're trying to make work, and someone's going to have to make themselves uncomfortable, either from a play calling perspective or like a Parker Brailsford, based off of what you're running to help your guards out, or your guards have to be uncomfortable. And so it's been a difficult situation. I think they've done a pretty good job of trying to work through it, even though the run game has been non-existent. But I think it's going to get better in the future. It just might not be in 2025.
I would say the running backs are better than those numbers indicate, and they're better than what we're looking at. I mean, Jam Miller is a better player than what we've seen recently. Daniel Hill is a better player than what we've seen. I think Kevin Riley, maybe the most stunning number of the whole season for me, Clint, is that Kevin Riley hasn't hit a home run.
Yeah.
I mean, he's one of the fastest players on the whole team. People like, well, maybe doesn't have a home run hitter at running back. Kevin Riley can fly faster than half the receivers. I mean, he can really run. He just hasn't found a crease or a hole all year long in all his carries. It's really stunning that Kevin Riley has that many carries and no home runs for me. So those backs are better than you think. I don't want to bring up Justice Haynes on the show every week or talk about, Justice Haynes every week, but we were probably saying the same thing about Justice a year ago. He wasn't good enough. It wasn't productive enough. Then he goes to Michigan. He plays in a different offense, and we see, he's basically a first-team All-American, this year, and what he did at Michigan. So I think these backs are better than what we're seeing, and that could show up at any moment.
Yeah, if they start to get things figured out. And is AK Deer going to be the solution there? Do I think it's possible that they're like, hey, we're trying different things, but if you're trying different things there, they have been trying different things with the offensive line, but you need to continue to work on that, because I think offensive line and tight end right now have been the bigger problems. And, that might be, if Jay Lindsey is a more, capable blocker, then, I know that you're sacrificing something from a pass catching perspective. And I know that Caleb Edwards has tremendous upside down the road, but maybe you need to be trying out Jay Lindsey a little bit more to try to get, be able to sustain blocks a little bit better, because that has been the number one issue, in my opinion, is just the offensive line, the tight ends. It's always somebody, wide receivers, their inability to sustain blocks consistently. There's always a guy coming free and making a play, and that has been detrimental to Alabama's run game. Still think Alabama is going to have some success against this Oklahoma defense, but we'll be talking about Alabama's defense going against Oklahoma's offense, on the next episode. And that, I think, is the more critical side of the football based off of impact on this particular game. So looking forward to that. Jimmy, appreciate you hopping on here with me. Definitely get on over to roadback.com. You use the promo code Crimson20 to get 20% off your order. And also get on over to Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast, and search the Cover Crimson Podcast Network. Go hit that download button. that is something right now, guys. I promise. Like that's the number one thing that you can do to help us out is get on over there and just do that. It'll set the automatic downloads for you. You don't have to do anything else at that point. And if you want to continue to listen over here, that's totally fine. But that would certainly help us, and we appreciate you guys very much. We'll talk to you guys on the next episode.